Hi, and welcome to our fourth biannual CSB Entertainment Enlightenment. I am your host, Sade Brown.
And I'm Jason Villaroman. Thank you all for being here.
Yes. So for this symposium, we wanted to do a different take. I know in the past we've had great symposiums where we talked about broadcasting and news and the new tech way of doing it. But for this symposium, we wanted to do something different that I know a lot of students are interested in doing and possibly not pursuing news. So it's entertainment, and we have a great panelist to talk about it.
For those careers that you guys have voiced interest in, we have sound design individuals, producers, directors, writers, on-camera personalities. Yep. So it's really diverse, and hopefully you guys throughout this conversation will come up with some good questions to fire at these panels.
And possibly to network with all these available great media professionals. Just saying. Okay, so let's get it started. Okay, so our first panelist is a television creative executive at MGM Studios, where he is part of a team that supervises all creative aspects of current programming and television development from beginning to end. He has worked on shows such as Fargo's, Vikings, and Teen Wolf. And he is also a Becca alum. Please introduce Nathan Taylor.
Creative producer behind C. Marie Productions, she specializes in film and video content for online and television marketing, webisodes, commercials, and reels. From concept creation and branding to media training, writing, filming, and editing. Her creative concepts have led her to consult, produce, and direct talent such as CeeLo Green, Elton John, Kelly Rowland, Kelly Osbourne, and Cobra Starship. She has produced and hosted segments for CBS, Singapore Airlines, Fremantle Media, and many more. She's also a Becca alum. Please welcome Cassandra Hine.
Producer and former business affairs executive recently launched a new creative enterprise with VJ Wax, an award-winning sci-fi fantasy author and writer. A former VP of Business Affairs at MGM, MGM Television Entertainment, and a business legal affairs executive at Starz Media. He was a producer of a television movie, Doomsday Chronicles, segment producer of ABC series Ripley's Believe It or Not, and producer of Peabody Award-winning snippets. Introducing Steve Fish.
And next up, the creator and host of the Valley Girl Show, which airs on CBS at 7 p.m. on Saturdays, KPIX, and CEO of Valley Girl Incorporated. She has produced and distributed over 200 interviews with some of the greatest minds in the business, entertainment, government, and technology, including Ted Turner, Sheryl Sandberg, and MC Hammer. Previously a Nickelodeon star, she has used her comedic and acting talents to bring an approachable feel to the world of business. Please welcome Jessie Draper.
Creative sound designer with more than 20 years of experience in interactive audio. His path began at Lucasfilms Games, where he contributed to the industry's first titles to feature fully interactive musical scores. Currently, he is a senior audio artist at EA's, I always mess this wrong, but it's all right, Visceral, is that correct? Game Studio. He is credited for Star Wars Starfighter, Star Wars Galaxy, The Simpsons games, Dead Space 2 and 3, the newly released Battlefield Hardline, just to name a few. Welcome, Jay White. Thank you guys all for coming. It was an experience talking to each one of you. I connected with them all through email, and you guys actually took the time to come up here. I know you guys some traveled from LA, yeah. Some are based here, but again, thank you so much for coming and to speak to the general students at SF State. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for arranging this show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. All right. So let's start it off. My first question is to Nathan. You started as an assistant at an agency and production. Is that the go-to entry level for people who want to go into television?
Yeah, I think so. Hollywood has this weird, system that a lot of careers don't have of apprenticeships, you know, and I think that's still alive and well in Hollywood, which is awesome because, you know, as an assistant, you're, do I need to get closer to the microphone?
Probably. You can like pull it up if you want.
All right. But yeah, I think it's, you know, you get to interact with your boss, you get to schedule his meetings, you get to understand how your boss kind of thinks, listen in on the phone calls, all these different things I think are great of being attached to somebody and really sort of having, hopefully, not always, but a built-in mentor that can really train you how to do these things. And particularly, I think starting at an agency is really important.
Which agency did you start off in?
Well, I didn't have the typical big agency experience. Which I recommend, but the agency I was working for was a really small agency with just one agent.
Okay.
Her name was Susan Smith, but I think that is really helpful. You've probably heard people tell you this before. If you want to go into entertainment and TV or film, like start off at an agency because it's a great way to meet a lot of people, to start networking. It sucks, you know, but you put in a year or two and you get out of there, and I think it will really kind of put you ahead for a lot of different reasons later in your career, just because of the connections that you make. You're sort of in the middle of the industry. You understand how things work, how deals get made, and you know, you're also in the first place to really learn about other jobs. So it puts you in a good place to get a great job after that, because you're the first one to hear about those things as they open up. So,
all right, thank you.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. This next question is for Steve. How did you gain your experience in producing film and television shows coming from a legal and military background?
Well, actually, it started out in the military. I was with Combat Camera Pacific, and when it was in that...
Was that the Army?
That was Navy.
Navy.
Please,
Okay.
please.
Excuse me.
And I mean, when I was 19 years old, and they sent me out with a 16 millimeter Ari on my shoulder, and
Wow.
I spent a year out in the field, and I spent a year in post-production, starting off with an upright moviola, and
Wow. Okay.
and then from there we actually got a flatbed, so that was kind of exciting. So, and we used to hang up the 2 frames of film that we cut out and put it up in the bins and all of that, and so I got my start there. And then when I got out, I actually through some friends was able to interview, and I was the gopher on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In on their last season of the air.
Wow.
And from there, I finished up, went to UCLA Film School, and got into production and met some people, and I ended up working for a guy who was producing films, and he came from the Wolper organization.
Okay.
So it was through that opportunity that I was able to do Doomsday Chronicles.
Oh,
Because
okay.
he was pitching some films to Gold Key Entertainment at the time, and said, if you have an idea, I'm happy to go and present it. I said, great. So I put some words together and with a friend, and
Was that like a treatment, or did you put like a...
That was about a 10-page idea
Uh-huh.
for what the film was going to be about. It's sort of an end of the world 101. And hey, listen, we had Linus Pauling and Daniel Ellsberg and David Scott, the astronaut, and a bunch of others who were all talking about what was going on. It was a 90-minute television movie.
Wow.
And he was able to sell it, so he served as a producer and with me, and he said, now, I did the work in selling it, you go make it. And it took about a year. And I put a team together, and with a very limited budget. In those days, I think we were paid $1,000 a minute to make this film. And we traveled all over and put that together. So from there, I ended up doing some other things. I did Snippets, which won a Peabody. That was for Kaiser Broadcasting. And then was a segment producer on Ripley's Believe It or Not. But by then, I
love
was
that
married and needed to get a real job. Because you can't live as a producer. You could be paid for a week, and you may not get another paycheck for a year. So I went to law school, and with the idea I was going to be a business and legal affairs executive, because I was really gravitating more and more towards the business side of the business. And because of my production background, I was able to go ahead and...
Steve, would you mind just talking, for all the panelists, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I was able to go ahead and get into Ripley's. Now I'm too close. Get into Ripley's, and that just took things off, and ended up, as I said, once I got married, I needed to have a regular paycheck, and so I went into business went to law school and became a business affairs executive, and did that for nearly 2 decades.
So did you study entertainment law?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was working for in-house on the studios. That was the side I enjoyed,
Awesome.
the management side.
Do you remember some of the projects that you were VP or had work in with the entertainment law?
Well, at MGM, we did Cabin in the Woods, and I'm just trying to think some of the things.
It's a great movie.
There's so many, when you do business affairs, you work on so many different projects over a period of time. You'll be working on 10, 15 projects a year that actually get produced. Now, there's a lot of product that, when I was at Fox Family, we created a primetime series division, and I helped create the model with my boss. And we did 30 writer, executive producer deals in a matter of 3 months. And out of that, one actually got on the air, to give you an idea in those days what it was like. I think it's a little bit different now. It's probably a shorter development window.
Cable helps us out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
anyway.
Thank you.
All right. Chessie, what do students need to know about starting their own business?
Oh my gosh. Make sure you are really passionate about whatever it is, because you will have ups and downs. And I've been doing this show now. I started this show out of my parents' garage. It was like a complete disaster. I hired my brothers who had not gone to film school, and they were in high school at the time. And I was like interviewing, I interviewed the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, in my parents' garage with my brothers, and my brothers got bored and put down one of the cameras in the middle of the interview.
How did you get that? Like the CEO? Like
the CEO.
Yeah.
So I am a big networker, and
Okay.
I actually, for him, that was our first season, and I had reached out to quite a few people. Also, that was very early days of Google, very
right.
early,
Okay.
like year 2 maybe.
All right.
Yeah, so very, very early. And he and I had gotten in touch with his daughter, and then she helped me get him. So, I lucked out on that. But anyway, so it was a complete disaster in the beginning. But what I've learned is you just have to keep going, even if it's a disaster in the beginning, and you have to love what you're doing and be passionate about it, because now, 7, 8 years later, I'm like, you still have very high highs and very low lows. So just, make sure you are ready to get into battles, but it's also like the most rewarding thing I've ever done. So I'm really grateful that I started this.
Thank you. Cassandra, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Has much
Hello.
changed?
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, of course. So how did you find yourself creating your own business and developing, directing, and producing, on-air talent?
Yeah. I actually started at CBS myself at KPIX, and I was an intern for like 3 years. I just kept going back, and I never just asked.
Were
I
you
just
still
kept
a
coming.
student during
I
that
was.
time?
I was still a student. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, the internship's up, but like, I just
Keep it rolling.
I just didn't ask. I just kept coming back. So like 3 years later, that's where I started my producing career as an associate producer for Eye on the Bay, and back when it was on, I think Liam is still over there. Liam Minklem.
We film in LA.
Oh, okay. She said KPIX, so.
Yeah.
But so I ended up, doing that, and then I went to LA shortly after I graduated, but I was still, producing. And so when I did go there, I started working for a hosting management company in school. And so that's, to your point, I think it's definitely a really great thing to be able to have that in your bag of tricks, kind of to work at an agency, because you kind of start learning the language of LA. Hollywood kind of has its own kind of rule books, or set of rules. So I started there, and then I started the production at the hosting management company.
Okay.
And I worked as the head of production for about 5 years there.
Oh, wow.
And I just love working with talent. I love creating show concepts, and even though you're really producing people to find their passion and their niche, that's really what you're doing. You're helping them kind of realize where they want to be in that placement of this whole world of entertainment or, you know, news broadcasting or wherever it is. That's such a wide range of niches. So you're kind of developing that became my niche. And I love it. I just love working with talent. So now I package talent and I'm able to kind of, you know, create a perception for people. And a lot of them are now on television. So it's really cool.
Did you have an experience on on-air talent before? Were you like in front of the camera before?
Yeah. I do commercial work. So a lot of what I do, you know, I'll host something and be on a commercial. I'll be on set for a day. But, you know, for me, it's fun, but I really get my passion and my
You're like the others.
my fire from like working with and helping other people get to where they want to go. You know, it's just like kind of my passion and my fun. So, so yeah, I started my company because I was doing all of that anyways, and then I ended up breaking off and producing a line of infomercials. And you know, I've always kind of directed talent and produced and kind of did the whole thing. But when I started my own company, it was easy to kind of just do what I do for myself, you know, because then you're creating your own set of rules, you know.
Are you up
to
here?
Be able, no, I'm in LA.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so yeah, working with talent is just, it gives me the opportunity and the creativity to work with, you know, a range of people. So I never get bored.
That's important.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. So Jay White, what is, or is there a difference between being a sound designer for film and being a sound designer for video games?
Oh, there's a big difference. In many ways, people who do games have to know how to do post-production for film because one aspect of like the titles that I work on is storytelling. We do visual storytelling. We do everything that a post house would do, only on smaller budgets. But then we also have the entire technical side of integrating a wide range of assets into systems that can be played back in any combination. So you basically, you know, you have to kind of, in a sense, grok the big picture of how all these disparate elements, how you can take one mechanic to play footsteps and integrate that with the mechanic to play explosions and still have all of them come out no matter what the player is doing, whether they're in a helicopter, falling off of a building, parachuting, playing soccer, you know, what you name it, right? You have to come up with creative solutions to get the crowd to sound right relative to the kick of the ball and make the kick of the ball feel exciting and basically empower people to feel like they're embodying the fantasy that the game provides. So in a sense, yeah, we have to know far more than people in film, but we also learn a lot from people in film. Games are now finally coming to the point where we're dealing with issues of mixing and dynamic range so that a game will sound much more like a cinema experience than it did, say, 10 years ago. So in that regard, you know, I'm not calling us, you know, the top dog on the audio spectrum by any means, but I would say that it's a really deep set of skills that are required to make a game, and a subset of those skills are the same ones that film sound designers use.
Just to kind of add on to that, does your role involve those mechanics that you're speaking of?
Oh yeah, I design systems. I actually program them. I've found, you know, throughout the course of my career, part of what has kept me doing this as long as I have is that there's always been something new to learn. Working with actors was something in the late 1990s that I began to really enjoy doing. I did a lot of direction. I actually began writing scripts. And then around 2000, I started back at LucasArts. And I worked there for 4 years. And I became really deeply interested in actually integrating the sounds into the games. There was kind of a industry-wide recognition at that point that great sounding games, you could take great sounding assets, and if they weren't integrated into the experience well, it didn't matter.
Right.
They didn't sound good because they weren't playing back correctly.
Right.
So I was one of the people that began to kind of smell the sharks in the water and took that on my first project that I led there. And I made a classic newbie mistake. I had no idea how much work it would be, so I kind of killed myself on that first project.
Oh, wow.
But I learned a lot, and you know, over time, I've found that the technical side of it is something that I have a lot to offer. And so I'm kind of one of these rare people that I am as creative as I am technical, and blending those things together.
important.
Just here's a hint to everybody: if you've got that, you'll do great in game audio.
Awesome, thank you. So this is for the entire panel. You guys can just hop in whenever. This is for the students. Name something that you wish that you had known when entering your career, entering your industries. Just exiting college, just exiting the military, that you could impart to these graduates.
Nathan.
Go ahead, Jesse. Yeah. Whoever wants to jump in.
Go ahead, after you.
I mean, I think knowing something and living it are very different things. And I think that there's a million things I wish I knew when I entered my career, millions, but I really threw myself into it, and I think that I learned so much because I just tried everything. I was acting, and then I was producing, and I just made it happen for myself. I mean, it would have been nice to know, to have created a path, like here's the first step, here's where I want to get to, here's what I have to do in order to make the first step. But you don't know, like everyone's path is very convoluted, and there's nothing, you can't know anything. You really just have to live your life and go for the gold. That's what I would say.
All right, go for the gold. I like that.
I would say, Shadi, you asked me this question before, and I didn't have a good answer
Yeah,
then, but
I mean,
I've
it's
thought
all right.
about it since then.
Okay, good. It's been like a year.
Yeah, I think I would say, I moved to LA with the intention of being a TV writer. That's what I wanted to do, and since then I found what I do now to be more enjoyable, and hopefully I'm better at it. But I think, it's funny, people told me that in order to be a good writer, you have to read a lot of scripts, and I just never wanted to do that. Like, I was like, I'm going to be a good writer on my own without doing that. But I think, in my current job, I have to read a lot of scripts, and it's so funny, like, looking back, even though I'm not a writer, I think I could probably write a better script now than I could have a long time ago wanting to be a writer, just because I've read so much since then. So I think, it's really important going into, some field of entertainment, to read a lot of scripts, to read other material, because that's just going to make you better. And I think that probably applies to, if you want to be a director, watch a lot of films. If you want to, whatever you want to do, like, look at other people's work, because that's going to help hone your craft as well.
Awesome.
So I don't think I did that enough when I first started, but I think I've over time learned the value of that.
Cassandra?
Yeah. I guess for me, honestly, you kind of, if you're studying to be a journalist, then I was taught so much that it's all about objectivity. Like, it's not about you. It's all about being objective and looking at all sides of the coins, which is great. I'm definitely like a journalist at heart. But then you get to LA, and it's like, well, what's your opinion? All of a sudden, nobody cares about you unless you have one.
Yeah.
So it's like, your opinion is your personality, but there is somewhere in between, because you don't have to choose one or the other. It's just that I didn't know the range of options that there really are, so to be able to identify that whole range and go, oh, okay, you don't put yourself in the box and go, I'm looking at Ryan Seacrest's career, that's all that exists. I mean, there's so many people and options out there, and choose your own, just like you said, like, whatever it is, just be 110% passionate about it, because that's the only thing that's going to get you through. And I just think that if I would have really known the range of options that were out there, I've created my own, and I'm totally glad of where I've ended up.
You're your own boss.
Yeah, but it's good to know that, don't think that you have to do what everybody else did. You'll get to where you're going on your own and take your own path. It's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is the value of your contact list and networking. And as students, you truly are in the catbird seat, which I didn't realize when I was a student. And what I mean by that is, if you have an idea about what you would like as a career path, or maybe you have a couple paths that you want to do, one of the things I would suggest is to get as many informational interviews as you possibly can.
That's
How do you
important.
how do you go about doing that?
Yes.
And what's it about, and what's the attitude, and what's the protocol? You've chosen a path or a couple paths. Search out who are the top 10 people in the field. And most likely they're here in California, and LA's not that far away to be able to either drive down or take a plane, or if you can.
Hour flight.
Exactly. So the toughest thing is to get through the gatekeeper, the assistant to that person. And you're going to have to be perseverant, and you're going to have to say, hey, I'm a student, and this is what I'm thinking of doing as a career path, and I would love to have 10 or 15 minutes of your boss's time to go ahead and get an understanding of what it was for your boss to launch his or her career, and so that I can make a decision as to is this the right path for me. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of research. It's going to take a lot of calls and perseverance and calls again and more calls, and then you'll get through to the first person will say, sure, I'll meet with you for 10 or 15 minutes. Remember, it's not an interview for a job.
Right.
So you're not dressing up, you're not bringing a resume, you're not having a resume in your backpack, you're not having a resume in your car, because if they ask for a resume, you can honestly say, I didn't come here with a resume, because that wasn't why you were there.
No cover letter either?
No cover letter, nothing, because you're asking them questions. So when you dress, obviously, whatever is your style, be who you are. You're not dressing up, it's be who you are. You know, don't show up in shorts and flip-flops unless
Or
you're...
pajamas.
Yeah, unless you're meeting somebody in Malibu. But other than that, but when you go in, you have to be prepared. So you have to do your research. You need to know enough about them and a lot about that person so you can go ahead and say, oh, how did you go from A to B? How did that happen? And other things like, well, what's the quality of life? What's your life like? What's your personal life like? Your work life? How does those things mesh together? And ask those meaningful questions that they can tell you're really passionate and understand who they are, and you're asking good questions because you've done your research. There are a few things to know before you leave. Number one, you'd love to respectively keep in touch with them. How would they like? By snail mail, by an email, a phone call, whatever they are. You're not going to bug them. And what you'll do is that by being able to keep in touch, in Google search and stuff, you can put the person's name. And so if something comes up for them and they've done something, you can send them an email, one line. Saw you got the so-and-so gig. Congratulations. That's it. That's all. Just a little note just to say hi. And if you're doing something, let them know, oh, I've got an internship with so-and-so, just wanted to let you know. Thank you. My conversation with you really made a difference. When you leave, it's very important to acknowledge the generosity of the person. And you do that not by an email. You do that by a handwritten note with a real stamp on the envelope. And I suggest, you know, those 5x8 thick cardstock. And find a style, you know, you can go to there's a number of places you can go to find one. Find one that reflects your personality. And you'll probably draft 5 or 10 different versions of it, but it should be on one side, nicely written, that really is heartfelt and talks about some of the things that they shared with you that were meaningful, and send that to them. And that's really, really important because nobody does that. And getting a handwritten note from somebody and then keeping in touch, as I suggested, suddenly, you know, you have a relationship. But here's the other thing. Before you leave that interview, you respectfully ask, can you give me the names of a couple of your friends that I can call to continue the conversation?
Nice.
And most likely, they'll say yes with 1 or 2 names. And now you don't have to go through the gatekeeper again. Now it's so-and-so referring you. And guess what? You start the process over with those two people. And you keep doing that with those 2 people and those 2 people. And suddenly you'll have 100, 200, 400 names in your contacts that you're keeping in touch with very respectively. Is it a lot of work? You bet. If you get an interview while you're in school for something, you can send a note. Don't send a group message. Make it individual and target that, oh, I'm going to see so-and-so. I just wanted to let you know. They may come back and say, oh, that person worked for me. Say hi for me.
Okay.
Suddenly, you're in an interview for something and you're bringing up somebody's name, and it's like you may very well go to the head of the class, because how do you know that person? Because they're like one of the top people in the field.
Now, we're running a little short on time.
Sure, I'm sorry.
That's
didn't mean
okay.
to take it.
No, this is all super important.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you added that last little bit in, because it's always good to get their opinions on what else, who else you should be talking to. Jesse?
Yeah, I actually would love to tag along
Yeah.
on what he said. I think networking is one of the most important things, and I'm also queen of the cold email. Like, you can find anyone's email on LinkedIn. Mark Cuban, his email was Googleable, and I found it, and I emailed him, and he got back to me and was like, I can't do the interview right now, but just keep me posted on another opportunity. And so I emailed him for 2 years. I emailed
wow.
Mark Cuban just maybe once a month, just being like, could you do it this week? Could you do it this week? And then one day he emails me 2 years after I started emailing him, and he goes, I can do it tomorrow in San Francisco at noon. And I'm like, okay. And I wasn't even in San Francisco, and I didn't have a crew, and I had to figure it all out. And we ended up doing it in a conference room at the hotel he was staying at. And I threw it together, but I made it happen. And it was a great interview for me.
Wow.
And I've taken Jessica Alba's PR person out to coffee. I've done I emailed her for 6 months, then took her out to coffee, then I got Jessica Alba. I've done a lot of these start with just a cold email, and never be afraid. And when they write back no, just write no worries, and then come back later. And if you just keep coming back, people always get back to me once I've emailed them about 25 times. So
the
and
squeaky
never
wheel gets
take
the grease.
offense.
Keep going.
Yeah, never take offense.
So while you're in school, you get to bug people, and then when you're after school, you get to bug
Yeah.
You have a lot of time, probably, yeah. Wow. Okay, my last question. It's for the Becca alums. So Nathan and
You
Cassandra.
want to get Jay?
What?
Jay, you got anything to add on top
Oh,
of that?
yeah.
Well,
Jay.
it's funny. By the way, great advice from both of you, from everyone actually. This has been actually inspiring to hear, even though I'm not planning to leave my industry. It's great to have that advice. The funny thing about this question, when it was first posed to me, is my job did not exist when I was getting into my job, right? This was a very small field in 1991. There were probably 60 people in North America doing game audio at the time. I had no idea the job existed until it came to me. So I was very fortunate in that regard. Over time, though, I would say that, the thing, and again, there's another theme that's coming up here. The thing that I'm constantly surprised by in terms of, what I would call my success, if you will, in doing game audio, is that it's not about what I do as much as it's about who I am. In all of these things that I've discovered that I'm good at, I came to this because I'm a musician, and I really enjoyed working in recording studios, and I really enjoyed then working with computers to sequence music, and all of those things, I've taken that core set of talents and applied it across multiple different aspects of doing game audio over time. And that basically I've been asked through thick and thin to do everything that I've actually ever been interested in. At times, my experience, I'm a photographer as well.
Wow.
I've done that as a hobby for years. And yet, I do visual storytelling. I know a lot about light. I know a lot about composition. And I'm in meetings, and I get to speak to those things, And at first, it was kind of odd for the artists to have the audio guy telling them things about that. But then everybody realized that actually my points were valid. And I think that, to echo what everyone else has been saying, it's really who you are is what people are hiring, not just what you can do. Obviously, we all have to be good at what we do, right? But bring your full self to whatever it is your path is going to be, and I think you're going to find an easier success that way.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, SF alums over here. So, my question is, what did you learn here at SFSU that stayed with you throughout your career?
A lot.
Easy answer.
Actually, I'll sometimes have like Marty Gonzalez in my head going,
I have a class with
why
him."
you? Why not you?
Yeah.
You know what I
He
mean?
would say that.
Yeah, there's so many great professors here. Dina
Yes.
Ibrahim.
Yeah,
I loved her class because I'm such a, I double majored in political science. So I was writing and reading a lot in poli-sci.
Awesome.
But then, she'd be like, okay, so who's more objective? Fox News or NPR? And the right answer was neither of them, and I loved that. Like people got so heated in that class because it was like, no, Fox News is definitely not.
What class was this?
It was, I don't know, you guys could probably tell me.
It was like continuing.
I don't know.
They
Like
don't have that
some
class.
meteor
I think it was,
performance,
no, it wasn't performance, although I did take her class in performance as well. But it was one of the three that you have to. No, it was like a media, it was like
No.
you have to like take the core something.
classes in order to get into that class? So it
Or
was an
like
elective.
not the core Becca classes, but you have to like pick kind of like an overall.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You have to pick like you have to end up like choosing something what department you're in. You have to
Yeah.
like pick, I don't know, some classes that go. You guys know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
maybe
Yeah.
broadcast interviews.
Yeah, so it ended up being in
all
that
a
core
blur to us,
group of
too.
classes that it just was like media. I don't know. It was some like general media class.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
Well, yeah, there's
media and
something
society or something like that. Anyways, and I love that because it's so true. We as objective as you can possibly be, you're still subjective.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about life. It's whatever you bring to the table, you're bringing yourself, you're bringing your perspective, and however objective you try to be, it's still going to be subjective because it's going through the lens of you. So, I think that identifying your own lens and being like, what, this is what I'm really passionate about. I went for so long being like, it's not about what I think, but now,
Yeah.
my sister's been in prison for the last 8 years, and I've
Wow.
really taken on like the prison culture in our society, and that's kind of my next big project that I'm packaging right now is just around the whole prison culture. And I think that being able to just identify what that passion is really important. So anyways, I love the professors here. You guys all rock.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. Like some of the classes that I found most interesting that I think still apply are things like, those classes where you're learning about society and
Yeah.
the impact of media on society and, all that stuff. The production classes are all valuable because so much of, in this industry, it's so weird because it's all about experience. It doesn't matter where you went to school or what classes you had. It's about getting that experience. And so you're getting that experience, all you guys on the cameras and up there in the booth, you guys are getting that experience. But you can also get that experience on the job as well. But I think that sort of theoretical foundation, at least for me, I found really interesting and informative to like the deeper level of what I'm doing. And even like those like stupid like general education classes that you hate that you have to take like History 101 and stuff like that. But like that, I think, ultimately it's all that information that's informing the shows that we're making.
Right.
So like, yes, you can learn how to work a camera. You can learn how to, give notes on a script. But it's my job is not going to teach me like, the political views in China that could make for a really interesting TV series.
You totally
know what
made
I mean?
that up. That was great.
So
Just
yeah,
like-
the political views in China.
Yeah,
Obviously.
of course, yeah.
So yeah, I think like the more well-rounded you can be, the better, and depending on where you want to go. But also just to reiterate what we've already been talking about is it's all about connections. Like my current
It's all about networking.
yeah, and the connections that I made through this school through CSB ultimately led to my job that I'm at right now in like a very long series of events. But my current boss was one of those connections that I got from somebody through somebody through somebody that I'm from someone at school.
Yeah.
And I went down and met with him. He didn't offer me a job. it didn't even offer me a free internship, and I was so disappointed and frustrated. But like a year and a half later, I kept in touch with him, and I went to go become his assistant. I still work
Perseverance.
for him now. So.
Yeah.
That's actually, I wanted to actually stress on that. There is a LA trip that I went on recently, but when I was a junior, I met Nathan through Miriam, one of our professors, and I kept in contact with him. I remembered his birthday and his favorite color, red, and just kind of like, yeah, I know, that's
that
kind
why
of
you wore red
stalkerish.
today?
It's a little like, but I kept in contact with him, and he came up, and it was, again, greatly appreciated. But I mean, when you network and you get the opportunity to meet with the media professionals, it's really important. One thing I know I will take after I graduate is networking, for sure. So.
What was that professor that she like takes the string and does this? You guys know? What's her name? Oh, Michelle Wolf. She was awesome. She remember? Or she like takes
Like through
the
her
string. And
nose?
yeah, she has like a
Really?
she has
She's
like
still
a
crazy.
yeah.
Like,
She her class is really interesting. Like I loved that class. 'Cause I'm just a weirdo.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, do the string.
Jesse,
Pretty good.
so what are the top 3 professional tips for aspiring on-camera personalities that you could give?
Oh, professional tips. Okay, who's going? Who wants to go on camera? Okay.
Raise your hands high.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
okay. Be honest.
Yeah.
I will be honest.
I know. You gotta go for it. Okay, so I think I'll try and gear that towards like the beginning of my career where I was on a Nickelodeon show, I was acting. So for that, I would say the top 3 tips would be, it is a full-time job. You are not sleeping in, you are auditioning 24/7, you are putting yourself out there, you are meeting with as many people as you possibly can, and you are doing the work for them.
Were you part
So-
of an agency during that time?
I didn't have an agent for a bit, and then I found a manager who was horrible. And then I don't even feel bad about it. He was so bad. I was on a Nickelodeon show, and he didn't do anything. And then I found a great agent. But I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But as far as getting out there, when you don't have an agent, like be meeting with agents, be asking for advice, be asking people, you know, who they know at an agency or you know, a management company, but keep in mind, those people aren't going to get you the work. You're going to get yourself the work, and it doesn't matter if you're represented or not. You could create a fake email address and be your own manager. I've done it.
Wow.
All
right.
And
Mental note.
also, you know, remember when you're meeting with these people and networking, like you need to do the work for them. So like I got a lot of roles because I'd be like, oh, you're a director? Oh, and a writer? Like, oh, can I read anything you've written recently? And they'd say, oh, yeah, actually, I'm about to produce this film right now. I'll send it over. They send it over, and then I'm like, oh, hey. And I list 12 roles that are like 3 to 5 lines. And I'm like, have you cast any of these? Because I would love to play one of them. And you've just done their work for them because they're like, I don't want to have to call someone in to do a 3 to 5 line role. I can't even tell you how many roles I've gotten that way. Also, when you're in a casting office, always go in the other casting offices and see what they're casting for. I've actually auditioned by like just walking in and being like, oh, what are they casting? Gossip Girl? Like, oh. And like, you know, you're obviously not going to be like the most well rehearsed, but go in and be like, I could play a limo driver for sure. Like, and then just go read it. You get in front of that casting director and, you know, you just like you need to just put yourself out there, but just remember it is a full-time job. It is not you can't be lazy. Like you have to work harder than everybody else out there because everyone wants those roles.
The same thing.
But also don't get discouraged. Like people are gonna make you feel bad. I mean, casting is like the worst thing ever. I had to go into a casting meeting recently and I was like, I hate casting. I hate this. I'm out of this. And it is just the worst. They make you feel so bad, and don't feel bad. Go in, low pressure, don't worry about it. Like just go in and be confident, but goof around, be yourself. Don't like don't stress yourself out.
It's just
before
show
you
business,
go in.
right?
They're just people.
And a lot of the casting directors are people that are like former actors that didn't make it, so they just want to make you feel bad, you know?
Yeah. It's you know what I think the worst part about casting is like they don't ask you anything about yourself. They're just like, okay, Stan, okay, cool, profile, okay, cool, okay, read your lines, great. Like they barely even know your name, you know. I don't know. So if there's any way for you to tell them about yourself, I think that's good too, and show that you're easy to work with.
We're gonna do one quick.
That's a lot of
that's
things
really-
and all over.
She's
the
so
map.
right on so many levels. It's really
She's
good
like,
advice.
If you're doing on camera, like you need to work so hard.
One quick question for Jay before we turn the mic over to the floor.
Yeah.
So Jay, your process for sound design in terms of like going into a game, here's a game, they've just started production for it. Do you go in with dialogue? Do you go in with sound effects? Do you go into your music library? Are you on Pro Tools? How are you going about all that?
Okay, so we'll take the Pro Tools question a little bit as a separate thing.
Okay.
Wait a
So
second.
when we go into production, actually we've probably already been in pre-production for a year. And on the titles that I can't speak to say the casual game market as much or the social game market because I've been doing big console and PC titles for my entire career. So these are multi-year projects. Just finished Battlefield Hardline. It was in production for 3 years.
Wow.
I was on it for the last 2 years. Prior to us going into our phased process, there was a year of I won't use that one as an example because Battlefield is an established franchise. We knew a lot of what the core sound was going to be. So let's take Dead Space 3 for example. When we began work on Dead Space 3, the first thing we wanted to do was we had an established franchise, but we also wanted to take an important component of it, which is the music, and expand the palette of the music to incorporate not only zombies in sci-fi horror, but human enemies in there. And we actually had to iterate a lot to find something that fit with the core tenets of the franchise, as well as just pushed it forward a little bit. So I spent a lot of time with our composer, Jason Graves, to just come up with ideas, musical ideas, but there's also the technical side of how music worked in Dead Space. And we basically, over the course of the first 2 titles, we came up with a vocabulary for meanings, the semantics behind what each of these 4 layers in the music that we mix interactively does. I know that's a lot to kind of take in. But basically, I had to work with him to come up not only with the musical style, but we had to talk about the technical aspect of how we would break the music down to play back interactively. And so we had, it was probably about a 6-week process until we nailed down what it was that we wanted to do. And we had a template for technically how we would accomplish it and aesthetically what we were going for. And that was not only working with the composer, that's working with the project creative director, that's working with the executive producer, getting their buy-in, and finally signing off on a direction. So, that's just one example of the things that you have to do, but you have to do that with sound effects as well. If you're starting a new franchise, it's like, I know I'm going to need to do, we'll take Dead Space again. We need a lot of horrible sounding vocalizations of things that used to be living and that are now reborn as what they call zombies or necromorphs. And so we did a lot of sound design of just making horrible noises, taking oatmeal and splatting against the wall, filling up a super soaker with olive oil,
That seems
and
really
spraying it across and hitting the wall and recording the sound of those splats. I was the sound of a character called the Puker. And so I actually had to go and open up my throat and make all these horrible noises. Like I got to the point where I actually did throw up just by making these sounds. Right? So
dedication is important.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
People often comment about that. It's like a lot of fun.
If you need an agent.
Actually, those don't count as vocal performances. They're just fodder for sound effects. So
They're taking advantage of you.
So those are examples of
Okay.
things that we do going into pre-production.
Thank you.
As our hand models, he's a voice model.
Oh,
I
very
know,
good.
right?
Okay. So we can open up the floor for questions if anybody has any.
Don't be shy. Don't
I
be
think
scared.
we have
I think we know them well enough.
Do you have any PAs at all?
Oh, come on, go for
Yeah,
it.
I like to call on people and make them ask.
Do
I
it.
know, like you in the red or black.
There's a mic over there if you guys want to.
Go ahead, 3 or 4 people need to line up.
And make sure you state your name so they can.
My name is Mike. My question's for Jay, actually. So based on what you've heard about the entertainment industry, you need to join an agency, you need to network, do this and that. What are the differences between the gaming industry and the television industry in terms of getting employment?
Well, games is kind of a cabal, but as several people have mentioned, it's there is a way of doing things. There's a kind of a guild process that is in place for many disciplines, especially like the kind of creative and support role disciplines that we don't have. You know, we don't have unions, and I think that supports people in a lot of ways. And in some ways, I wish our industry was unionized. But what I can say is that in the studio that I work in, when we're hiring people, basically we hire people for typically as contractors on a specific project. And that happens during typically the final year of production is when we're ramping up. Basically, when we go into full production, that's when we start hiring contractors to come in. And you know, I can't speak to how this might be different than film or television, but I can say that we always have specific needs. By the time we're in production, we know, you know, the core team has this set of attributes that work to get things done. And we know that we're going to need people to do, you know, sometimes we'll need a kick-ass sound designer, so we're going to hire a senior sound designer. A lot of times, we always need people who can do a lot of the integration work. It's a lot easier to teach people to do technical things than it is to teach them to do aesthetic things. So we always have at least one or two, you know, junior people who, in a sense, we do a mentorship because they have to learn a lot. These engines, the game engines, there's a lot of standardization beginning to happen, but we don't have any of that. We have to teach people our tools, and so we do that. You know, for any given task, there will be someone to teach that person how to do it. That said, I think that I think that there are a lot of engines available, like Unity. You can just download Unity and make your own game. And when we get reels from people, when we get resumes from people and they say, hey, check out the Unity game that I put up online, that gives us an idea of their level of dedication. And I think that's something that we always look for, is that people who will do the work because they have a passion for it already, and they'll do it for free for themselves. And I think that speaks a lot to, you know, the types of people that we will actually hire for these contract positions.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna go like this. Hi guys, my name is Justine LaValle. This question is for Jesse. I'm currently in the process of creating the concept for my own show on YouTube, and I was wondering how you came up with your concept for your show.
That's a good question. I grew up in Silicon Valley around here, in Palo Alto, and I grew up, you know, my dad worked with entrepreneurs, and so I always loved technology. It was something I loved. And I would see these guys I actually knew on CNN or CNBC just being grilled and torn to pieces for their numbers and financials. And I was like, why isn't there a show that celebrates them in a really positive way? Because these are some of the most innovative minds like anywhere. And I was coming off a Nickelodeon show. I didn't know it was ending, actually. I started the show sort of like between seasons on the Nickelodeon show and tried a pilot season. And we, you know, called it the Valley. It was going to be called the Silicon Valley Girls Show. The Silicon Valley Girls Show. But we decided to call it the Valley Girls Show because we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves, because I knew technology was going to be very important to everyone soon. And so that's kind of how I came up with that concept. It's like a fun, lighthearted, approachable technology talk show.
Okay, I'm gonna have to think of another name because my last name's LaValle. So
I mean, LaValle, I think you should definitely use that. LaValle.
LaValle.
You got to do something.
with that. Okay.
I do have to say with girl, I kind of wish I called it, I mean, you can't like call it like the woman show or something, but you grow up and then people, I don't know, they still associate it with like little girls. So
Once a Valley girl, always a
I've
Valley
had
girl.
a little bit of flack for that, but
Thank you so much.
good luck.
Hello, everybody. My name's Sam. My question is for the whole panel, and we have heard a little bit about everybody's sort of workflow in your respective jobs, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on how you work, what the runtime of like productions that you work on is, and just the type of like what's your week like? How does your week break down, and then also how does your year break down?
That's a
Loaded
big
question. Yeah.
I can talk about the timeline of a TV show, I guess. I mean, TV shows hopefully go on forever,
Yeah.
But that would be awesome. But I mean, usually like a life cycle, an ideal time is like around 7 years or something for a successful show. It depends on a lot of different factors. But generally the TV development process goes a lot faster than the movie development process, just because TV has to air whether you got something to put on it or not. So there's a built-in deadline, and so that helps creative people that like to procrastinate out a lot, because then all of a sudden they're working towards something. But my company is a little bit unique in that we really take our time developing things. We have shows that we've been developing for 2 or 3 years, some things I'm not even sure we've taken out to sell to networks yet. But the broadcast model is a lot faster. You develop, pitch, sell, make a pilot within 6 to 9 months, and then shortly after that, if you go to series, you're in production. So
A lot of the shows that I package with the management company that I'm is pretty much my partner. We could turn something over pretty quickly, but by the time it gets to the production company that we're actually going to work with, it could take years, like he said. It could be 2 years. Yeah. So like we have one right now, and see the thing, like I work in non-scripted, so everything is docuseries, reality, hosted shows, everything like that. So usually it's just about finding the crazy personalities that are going to be on the show, and they're, it's about their real life in real time. So it's really more of, if we put them in this scenario, this is going to happen, and that type of thing. But even in real life in real time, it could be a couple-year process. So it's kind of interesting.
As a business affairs executive, I've seen scripts come in through the transom and 4 months later be in production with a lead like Cicely Tyson, and then become an award-winning TV series, movie, to a normal run. I'm not sure how it is now over at MGM, but on the TV side, a year to 2 years is not unheard of for the development process, from the time either a pitch comes in or a spec script comes in to it being developed, and then making its way through and getting network or cable and getting it on. On feature films, it could be something as short as a year. It could be something that somebody's already made and has a short on. I mean, Lucas made THX 1138 when he was a student at USC, and that became a feature film and helped launch his career. So, but in the reality of today's marketplace, it could take a year to 3-4 years, sometimes 5 years. Sometimes there's films out there. Joss Whedon's Cabin in the Woods. That was less than 2 years before it was completed, but it took another 2 or 3 years before it was actually released after it was in the can.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because that was produced when I was at MGM,
Yep.
and it didn't come out until 2 or 3 years after.
Now we're talking about doing a reality show.
Yeah.
With that, so it all comes back at that.
Yeah, and that's
Really?
the
Call
other-
that the
Oh
whole
my
development
gosh.
process.
Yes. You have a catalog, and you can start mining that. So from that aspect, as a producer, it's I've got 4 scripts right now. 2 are high-end British project. One is a sci-fi series, and one is a Edwardian comedy, and they're being read right now by production companies because we're looking for a production partner in England. I don't know how long that process is going to take. The moment a production company comes on and says, "Hey, this is what we want to do because it fits into our model, and what we're looking for," it could ramp up within 6 to 8 months. So it just depends.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Philip Raupak. I actually graduated last year and just decided to crash the party.
Yay.
I emphasized in post-production, did some sound design. I'm now looking into editing and motion graphics mostly, more visual stuff. And I'm wondering if I can't afford to move to LA, do I have any chance?
Yeah, I was editing remotely for some time. I think that you can definitely work on shows there, especially a show of my size, like the size of my show. Like we were definitely doing that. Now I'm trying to be primarily in Los Angeles, but I think you could, especially for motion graphics.
I could get jobs in Los Angeles, but work from
But here.
convince them to let me work from San Francisco.
Yeah, especially if you're doing graphics and stuff. I think that's definitely a possibility. I mean, you guys
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
know better than me.
I shoot and edit everywhere I go.
Yeah,
So,
it doesn't
I mean,
really
not
look like
saying
I'm
that that's
losing
what you
your
want to
thing.
do, but there's also like commercial companies right out here, small, big production companies that are doing things that, that are all in the Bay. I would say that they're probably shooting and doing post-production in the Bay too, so I mean, I think it's everywhere.
Entertainment is really focused in LA. That's where that happens. But with that said, the actual production of things is leaving California like you wouldn't believe.
Yes.
And
Atlanta,
so for you, if you want to do if you want to be on set and do sound stuff, or even sometimes post production, and you can't move to LA, but if there's somewhere else you can move,
Go to Canada.
go to
Vancouver.
Canada. I mean, seriously, go to
Atlanta.
Canada,
Canada.
Toronto,
Or New Orleans.
Calgary. Yeah, I mean, there are great crews that are all across, and you're not probably gonna. And I'm speaking specifically in terms of like scripted entertainment type stuff, but you're not gonna find a lot of that here probably, or anywhere in California, because we don't have the tax credits really. But New Mexico, Chicago. I mean, like there's tax programs all over the place, and overseas, Canada. A lot of really interesting production stuff going on all around the world. We shoot Vikings in Ireland. We shoot Fargo in Calgary. We shoot Teen Wolf is the only show that we shoot in LA.
The other thing you might want to look at is the advertising industry, and commercials and things like that, because there's ad agencies in the major cities, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, New York, and they're doing productions all the time for their clients, and they may be commercials or whatever it is, but it's certainly an area where your talents can go ahead and be used.
Exactly.
I would also say that many of the larger corporations in the Bay Area will have in-house marketing departments, and many of them actually have video departments to support those efforts. So.
Sometimes those are called the communications department too.
Communications, okay.
Just thought.
Marketing/communications.
Thank you.
All right, hi, my name's Jason Cruz, and my question is for Jay. So with regards to interactive audio, I've been reading a lot about virtual reality and how that's supposed to take off pretty soon and how all the big companies are getting into it. I was just wondering what your thoughts are kind of on what its effect will be, and especially how interactive audio is going to play into that.
So it's a very interesting question. Currently, the things that we're looking at, so one of the things we always have to deal with in game audio is you're putting a player in this world, and the person has to identify with either just your arms being in front of you, which I find kind of bizarre myself, or a character walking around. So we always have to, basically in the 3D world, there's a microphone following whatever that model is around, and we call that the listener. And the listener point of view is something that you just have to define those behaviors. That is one of the fundamental behaviors that you have to get right, or else it just a game won't feel right if you're hearing a bad balance of things. Currently, what we're looking at is, I don't know if you've been and seen a Dolby Atmos film, but we're basically taking that same listener technology. What Atmos essentially is that listener model being applied to cinema. So, but we're having to take Dolby's ideas about how that works and put those into games. So the listener, when you start taking virtual reality into account, it's like this person is walking around the world, but they're also walking around the physical space, and especially Microsoft's recent announcement where you can actually be in the physical world.
Oh, wow.
We have no idea how we're going to model the listener for that. And I love that. I love that challenge that's like fundamentally you're here, but you're also somewhere else. So how do we place that? I haven't had to answer that question yet, but I look forward to it.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ronald Selak. I just want to say thank you guys for coming out. It's been very informative, enlightening. Since we only have time for one question, hopefully you all benefit from this, is can I have your emails?
Yeah, mine's Jessie@valleygirl.com, and I have no problem. I'm also very accessible online, but I have no problem with anyone emailing me.
Yeah.
And I hand it out. I think you should hand it out.
You realize 4,000 students are going to be watching this video.
That's fine.
Okay.
Only about 1% of you will actually follow up, and I
That's-
dare you
that
to
is
like
true.
actually change that
Persistence.
percentage.
Yeah. He's determined.
Cassandra at cmarieproductions.com. 2 S's.
Get the mistake all the
Not a
time.
K. It's a C.
Not a K.
Mine is JA White at EA.com.
I'm sorry, at.
EA.com.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and Jesse is like Jesse, not IE.
2 S's.
And if you just want to tweet, it's at Cassandra Hine. What are you?
At Jesse Draper or at Valley Girl Show.
I'm ntaylor@mgm.com.
All right, quick.
That was N. Taylor.
All right.
I'm emailing you. It's Steve Fish and then the number 2 at Gmail.
Thank you all very much.
Hi, my name's AJ Beck, and I'm an aspiring television writer, and this question is geared towards Nathan, but anyone else can answer it if they want to chime in. You said that you wanted to be a television writer out of college, and but you've went a different path, and one of the things you learned was to read more scripts. Is there anything else you've learned now being in the industry of what a television writer could do when entering that business?
Yeah, totally. I work with writers a lot every day. That's probably the biggest part of my job. Besides reading, write. I mean,
Nice.
you know, the best thing that you have going for you about wanting to be a TV writer is it doesn't cost anything to write a script. You know, so just write. Watch a lot of TV, read a lot of TV, and write. And the more you write, the better you're going to get. You know, don't believe that the first script you write is going to be the best thing ever, because I guarantee you it's going to be terrible. And as a writer, that's your calling card. That's, you know, it's the material that's going to get you your job. It's the material that's going to get you your agent. It's the material that's going to get you your manager. You know, the typical sort of career path for a TV writer, that's what you want to do, is be a television writer.
Yes.
So the typical career path is like, you know, get on a show as, you know, the sort of coveted job that everyone wants is to be the writer's assistant on that show. And normally you have to be a producer's assistant before that and an agency assistant before that. But again, just to reiterate, like working at a literary agency as an assistant is the best thing you can do if you want to be a writer, because you're going to hear about shows getting picked up. You're going to be working with showrunners who are going to be hiring assistants, and you know, after you put in some time at the agency, you know, you develop a relationship with the showrunner or producer that's calling in to talk to your boss every day, and they say, "Hey, I need an assistant." You know, and it's like, "Well, yeah, maybe me," you know, and like those kinds of, that's where those jobs come from. So, you know, and you get on a show and you can really just learn how it works from experience. But right.
Nathan, I had a question about writing, and maybe this would help AJ too. It was something I read about Hunter S. Thompson, and he would write, literally just copy F. Scott Fitzgerald, like type it out, just to see how it would feel. I don't know, is that a practice that you might recommend? Like
He was on
script
drugs.
writing? That could have very well been another factor.
There's a really cool tool. Sorry.
No,
There's
go
a
ahead.
really cool tool. It's called future mapping. And I find that not just in writing, but you have to, it's actually a tool that has you come up with stories, and it pulls things out of your subconscious and basically gives you a map of how you're going to accomplish it. But I think that would be a really great tool for you. It's called future mapping. It's out of Minnesota, the Learning Center. This guy named Paul Schilly, who's like a brilliant guy. But yeah, look into it because it's amazing.
Future mapping.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I would say that technique would probably make you a really good typist.
Got it.
Okay.
But you know, you gotta find your own process. I mean,
Right.
you know, maybe
I just
try
thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
and-
try again. It doesn't cost anything to try
Right.
it, right? Yeah, I don't know. You gotta find your own process. You know, maybe that works for some people.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I want to add, one of the things that you have available to you, like the Television Academy has an internship program. It's rated by Princeton Review as one of the top 10 in the United States in any field, right up there with the Supreme Court of the United States, just to give you an idea.
I know some people actually applied in the audience.
And you know, applying is really great. And one of the things as a little, you know, key is your personal statement means a lot. And really focusing in on why and displaying your passion about why you want to do this. what is it in your being, what is it in your heart, what is it in your environment, or where you came from that brought you to this point to make that decision. The other important thing is that the letter of recommendation from your professors are really, really important. And you really want to have a professor who knows you, and that comes through in their letter of recommendation about you, that they do know you, because that weighs a lot within the judging committees. So it's something, a couple little notices there. Also, for writers, I know in Los Angeles, if you happen to be in Los Angeles, I sit on the advisory board of the Greater Los Angeles Writers Society, and they have a number of critique groups for primarily book authors, but they do have a screenwriting section. And it gives new writers a chance to go ahead and talk with others about what they're doing in a safe environment, and you build trust amongst yourselves, because that's really important. Even established writers have a group that they'll go, hey, will you read this? Tell me what's good, what's
Always
bad.
good to get another opinion.
And just because you're into it and you think it's great, and somebody says, yeah, your character goes from here and jumps off and says, nah, that's stupid. You got to do something different, because it doesn't make sense. And because you respect each other's opinion, and there's that trust involved, and that's really, really important, so no one's going to steal from somebody else. But those kinds of things are out there, and to take advantage of those things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions that
Yeah.
people may have?
No?
Don't be shy.
I know.
Okay, I got a question for Jay. So you were talking about the Pro Tools question is something that you wanted to address later. I'd like to
Hey, might as well.
bring that up now.
Tools. Well, no, I just think pre-production is a very different thing than what tools you use. And the thing where I work, everywhere I've worked, we've tried to standardize on the tool sets.
Okay.
And that's nonsense. You know what? Every designer works with the software. They work best with the software that they're familiar with. So we've abandoned trying to standardize. And most of us use Pro Tools, but we recently hired, one of our contractors uses Vegas, which is a video editing program, but he does all of his sound design in Vegas.
Interesting.
It's like,
What do you
and
use?
he's amazing.
That's
so it's
a
like,
Sony
you
program?
go for it.
It's a Sony.
It is?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Sony's video editing suite.
Oh,
So I think that the one thing I will say that like the linear side of what we do, we work with a lot of external partners, and so Pro Tools is in many ways the lingua franca. So even people who don't, like I have a director who uses Reaper because he likes that, DAW, but he has to have a Pro Tools rig because we get sessions and we have to interchange. We have to receive sessions from people in LA. Say the mocap stage is capturing our audio, and they'll work in Pro Tools, and so we do all of our editing in Pro Tools. And then when we actually take and do the final post on each scene, like, in a game, each movie is its own separate file. And like on Hardline, we had 170 movies. And so we actually, when we localize those games, we send those sessions, we put them in our source control server, and the people in the localization department in Spain take those, and they use those sessions, and they save them off for the 8 languages that we're going to localize Battlefield in.
Oh.
So, Pro Tools is an important part of everyone's tool set.
Okay.
But in terms of doing sound design, we like people to use the tools they love to use.
Wonderful.
Good. It's good advice because I know a lot of students who are focusing on audio or using Pro Tools that we have now. So that's good to hear.
Jay mentioned this, and his passion of storytelling really comes out, is that no matter what we're doing, we're all contributing to the storytelling process. It's developing the project, it's doing the sound design, but also being sensitive. It's coming up with the ideas, it's acting, it's, even business affairs is all part of contributing to a story and how it makes, gets onto the screen or onto the TV or onto your computer or onto your phone or, somewhere in the air between us. And that's what it is. And it's your passion and your dedication and your willingness to really work hard, because it does take that. It's, when you're doing it and you're earning a living at this, they're paying you to have fun. I think we can all agree to that.
Right.
I mean, we all have fun with what we're doing, and luckily there's a monetary component that goes along with that, which is really terrific. But that's what it's about. And it's really coming from yourself, and how much you want to go ahead and dedicate yourself to it is going to be telling you your success is unlimited. It truly, truly is.
Great.
Thank you.
One other question for maybe the entire panel. So graduating, people are going to be entering industries that are going to vary from what we've actually studied to maybe something completely different. In terms of like transferable skills that we're learning here in terms of writing, production, just managing people, teams, groups, how relatable. I mean, I guess it's tough to speak on because we're studying a specific discipline. But in terms of like entering in a project management role at a company, coming from a production side, can you see how your experience might be able to translate to other industries?
Are you already trying to talk these people out of this career path?
I'm just offering options because a lot of people want to stay in San Francisco, and like Jay was mentioning, or Jesse was mentioning about technology companies having other departments.
PR, advertising, coming up with creative ideas to the application and implementation of those ideas, whether it's on a visual medium of just an ad on a piece of paper, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think a lot of industries would translate from here, but you're here for a reason, and it's probably because I don't know if the technology got you there or just the creativity got you here, but we all have something in common for being here in the first place. So I think that creativity translates in so many fields.
Yeah.
Okay. It's definitely not one of those things where it's like, I studied psychology and now I'm, a salesperson. I think that you could be a salesperson, but you're actually getting really practical knowledge here at this school. It's really great practical implementation of it. And in this day and age, I'll do commercials for construction companies, like
right.
you could literally create your own production company if you're, I shoot and edit, and I think that those sets of tools that you get here, being able to be that one-man band is so
From
important.
journalism, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reporting, and
Yeah,
once you set
you're like
that, the
shooting yourself, and then you're
editing,
editing it. It's like you could implement that to so many different, and it translates to everything.
Yeah.
Because you could literally I start YouTube channels for a lot of doctors, lawyers, people that are.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, there's so many different paths that you can take. So just be creative. That's why you're here.
Right.
Yeah.
I think at MGM I get to do I get to do like what I think is the fun stuff. Like I'm actually like creatively sort of managing these projects, but there's so much more of what goes on at a studio than just that. That I think all of this sort of stuff you have to know that too. Like for example, business affairs or sales. Like we make this stuff, somebody's got to sell it. Advertising. Marketing, physical production is kind of what we're doing too. But finance, legal, all these different areas. But you're still in the business. You still have to know television and film in order to be able to
Have
do
some
that. But
sort of knowledge with it.
yeah, and another thing that I think a lot of people that sort of leave my business to do and find a lot of satisfaction in outside of that which is still kind of still a business, but digital stuff like mentoring content creators on YouTube, for example, and that sort of thing. Like there's a lot of ever expanding digital type jobs that are very closely related.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just giving people options. Okay, well, if anybody has any questions, what's up, Sam?
You guys all seem very comfortable in your current positions, whatever they may be, and I was wondering if there was like a threshold where you were like, yeah, I'm like, this is who I am, this is my person, I can go to a college campus and talk about what I do because this is what I do.
I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah, and I think when you're in a creative field, like you're constantly trying to improve everything. Like there's never a final product. So I know for me personally, I'm like happy we're finally on TV and we're moving forward. We're trying to roll out across the country, but I feel like the show's still not where I want it to be. Like it still can be better and better and better. So I think you're never. I don't know. I feel like I'm never settled. I'm always trying to improve.
Yeah. And you've been on for 7 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that just goes to show that, like,
That is so long. Man.
well, it also goes to show that, like, it seems like people, oh, all of a sudden, you know, this person pops up with a show, and it seems like, well, why did it happen for them?
Yeah.
What you don't see is all the work that they've been
Right.
putting into
Yeah.
it for years and years. You know what I
It's
mean?
the same, I think, with like music artists as well. Like they've been doing
Yeah.
rap or singing or dancing or something for
Right.
some time, and then you finally make it, and they're like, oh, this person just popped up. It's
Yeah.
like, no, it took
She's
like
been doing
10
it for a long
years,
time, yeah.
possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. So as Shadi mentioned, I started at Lucasfilm Games while the principals in the sound department there were writing the interactive music engine. And 3 years ago at the Game Developers Conference, I ran into one of those people, Peter McConnell, and earlier in the evening, one of the other people there, Clint Bajakian, gave a talk to the audio panel, basically everyone in game audio, at an award ceremony, and he was, you know, basically fetting and roasting another member of the game audio community. And I realized, oh my God, Clint's like the elder statesman of game audio at this point. And I was talking with Peter McConnell about that later. I said, do you ever feel like you're the elder statesman? And he says, you know, it finally started happening about 2 years ago. And the shift for him was that instead of him walking up to people and talking to them, other people started coming up to him. And, you know, I consider him, you know, the godfather of game audio in many ways. And he didn't have that experience until, you know, 5 years ago. So, you know, it all depends on who you are. Some people love to talk to people, right? So.
And you'll also meet people that are like, you know, you have to work really hard. And like, how many of you guys
that
like have
face,
heard
too.
that so often? It's like, you have to work really hard in this business. And it's, I'm not saying that that's not true, but it's also could be easy and relaxed. You know, it's not, it doesn't have to be the same experience that, you know, you just are grinding it out. It's fun. You know, do what is fun
Right.
and follow your heart and do what's fun, and it'll feel like you're never working at all, you know?
You seem like you enjoy your job.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I've shared with classes where I've come in as a guest speaker, I always like to ask the students, because it really is a sort of a litmus test, how many no's, N-O, can you take a day? How many no's can you take a week? How many no's can you take a month? And can you end the year on the same high note that you started the year? And if the answer is none of that matters, this is what I want to do, you're in the right place.
I love that. I'm an entrepreneur, so I literally can't understand, I can't comprehend the word no. So like when people say, Jesse, we can't do it that way, I'm like, what?
Like, wait, what?
Yeah, we can. Like, yeah, we can. Like, let's figure it out. There must be another way. There's always another way, and you just can't even hear it.
Wow. Just goes one in the ear
Yeah.
and then out the others.
I literally don't understand it.
The word no.
Yeah.
No just means there's another way to get to yes.
Yeah,
That's all.
exactly.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I'm not talking to the right person. but-
Right, that's the quote is,
Go around.
don't take no from somebody
Yeah.
who can't tell you yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
There's solutions for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, unless anybody has any other comments or questions, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus.
I have a comment. So it seems like pretty much everybody who has come in and talked to us before has scared me personally. To say this is prison. You are like literally walking into war.
Hey,
Right?
Could you speak in
Jesus,
the
can you go talk into the mic?
Yeah.
Since you're talking about challenges, youth and
Yeah, so we can hear you.
We gotta
loud
get
and
you on
clear.
the recording.
Yeah. And then
Okay, so-
repeat your question if you can.
Okay.
Okay.
So it seems like everybody who has like come and talked to us here at SF State or previous colleges where I've been is always saying, you know, how hard it is, how it's prison-like. You know, you're basically attached to your job. You don't really have time for family. It's sacrifices here and there. So it kind of has make me think. You know, is this really what I want? You know, is this really what I you know, I want a family time. I want to be with my family too. You know, whenever I have kids and whatnot. So, but you guys are throwing me off right now. You guys are like, no, this is super fun. This is like the best thing, you know, that has happened to me. And so, how did you balance, you know, your family, your social life, your, you know, with work? I mean, it seems like you guys are able to do that, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm
Nathan
wrong.
is like, yeah.
Steve's
I,
like,
I guess you guys just enjoy your job. I don't know.
I think, I heard all those horror stories too, and I was like terrified.
We all have.
Yeah, and like, is that what it's really like? To be honest, yes. I've had friends that have had their bosses throw things. I've had things thrown at me.
When you work at an agency,
yeah,
it's crazy.
I've worked 14-hour day. Like, yes, it's all true. There are, assholes all over the place, but this is what I think that you don't hear, at least from my perspective. You're hearing the craziest stories. You're only getting a small little sliver of what happens. Yes, those things happen every once in a while. But there's also every other day of the week, where there's, for every terrible person, there's 20 other great people, and so I think you sort of, the stories that you hear are only the extremes, and yes, those things happen, but it's not the whole picture, if that makes sense. If you go into production, you're going to be working long days, and you're not going to have time to do things that you like, and you have to make sacrifices, but it's not impossible. It's not something that nobody can do. And
is time management important?
And I also don't think it's something that's unique to this industry. Like, there are a lot of industries that are that way. The difference is we're making television and video games and stuff like that, whereas we're not, crunching numbers in the accounting department.
It also has to do a lot with your belief system, like, what do you believe is balance to your, do you believe that getting into this business means sacrificing your family time? I don't think that. I pretty much put my fun first, and my work luckily is able to work into that, but I think that working for like a big agency or like a big, Warner Brothers, or you're working for one of those big studios or something, you're going to have that pressure. I like to live an easy, relaxed lifestyle, so I kind of, create my own terms, and I believe it. So I don't know. You could have either.
I think you can find balance in whatever you do. I mean, you should definitely try it. If it's something that you're interested in, you can always pivot and make a turn, which, some way. Like today, you guys are hearing from us, and today I'm feeling like happy and optimistic about my show and all of this stuff. But if you talked to me like last Wednesday, I had a producer steal all my hard drives and blackmail me. And
really?
It was the craziest. I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, let's hunt them down.
No, they're gone now.
Not unheard of.
And blackmailed
There's a
me
lawyer right
with
there, too.
all of my episodes from this season on them. It was like my career in their hands, and I had to do a mafia drop in a parking lot and pay the money they hadn't earned because I was on a deadline. Otherwise, I would have called my lawyer. But there's so many. I mean, there's still, you have these ups and downs. So that's the crazy story. But today, I'm feeling awesome. I got rid of the producer. We have new new
Thanks for
on
coming.
board.
Wow. Thanks for coming.
But I think but also you're saying, it's not specific to this industry. Everyone has these battles, and you just have to. Yeah, I like it. It's your outlook. It's your outlook on everything.
Yeah, I would also add that, everyone has a war story, and everyone has their top 3 war stories, right? And those are the ones that you're going to hear, most because they're the most colorful stories, right? Having worked in-house on a number of projects, some projects really are clusters. They're really hard to get done. But not all of them are like that. And, you find your balance for yourself. I mean, at a certain point, I've sacrificed time with friends, time with family, time with my partner. But I've also, at points when I've reached my personal threshold, I'll just say, no, I need to actually make that my priority now. And I'll tell work that for a day or two. And that you can make that work. I think that a lot of what it boils down to is your relationships with people, and part of your relationship with people is them knowing that you're going to come through, even though you can't do it on Wednesday and Thursday this week.
Steve, do you have anything to add to this before we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Work-life balance?
Word of advice.
Oh, well,
oh my
then.
gosh.
I'm
Zuma
sorry.
isn't always available for
right?
everybody.
I'm sorry. I have to walk that beach every morning
Yeah,
for
Zuma
2 to 5
Beach is
miles. I just
horrible.
can't start my day.
Gosh.
get that picture.
Gotta get that photograph. You know, you have your outlets, you know, you have your things. It truly, there are times where you're gonna be working 24 hours. You know, and there are times when there's deadlines, and there's times you're gonna have to do stuff. But then there's times that you're gonna have a breather, and depending what you're doing, if you're a cinematographer and you're on a shoot, you're gonna have your downtime, and you're gonna cherish those, you know, if you're on a series, you're gonna cherish those 2-3 months off. You know, if you're in-house, and certainly Jay and I and Ed have been in-house, that's, you know, you have a certain schedule, and yeah, you're gonna put in some, you know, 10 or 12-hour days, and sometimes longer. It just depends on where you're ramping up, and certainly that's just what the experience is. But you can work around when there's some major life events that happen, and you let your boss know, and you let the company know that these things are really important, and you work with that. And they're gonna respect that. As long as you do it in advance and don't surprise them with things, they can plan for those kinds of things. So is it a challenge? It certainly is a challenge. But within the context of things, you have a partner that that understands, and you have a family that understands that there are times that you do things. There's one friend who works for a Japanese company. Well, it's dinner time when they start working. And so when he's having dinner with his family, his phone rings, and he has to take the call. And everybody understands that's what he has to do. And he's on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning and doing some work. But you know something? During the day, guess what? He's out on the golf course 3-4 days a week.
Yeah. Wow.
And he's having a blast.
Golf course.
Yep.
And you know, if you like the buzz of live television, there's nothing like it. You know, I mean, you're gonna have that pressure, but when you go live, I mean, there's something about that. We have a client right now who's gonna be on the next Tyra show. It's coming up in the next couple of months.
The America's Next Top, you said Tyra show?
No, it's a talk show.
Oh,
yeah, like Tyra has a new talk show coming out like in the next, I don't know, it's probably gonna start airing in the next few months. And, you know, she's a host on it, so she's one of the, you know, the co-host panelists. And that's gonna be a lot of pressure, you know? And when you're on television, you're on live television, I mean, even more pressure than having, like, working behind the scenes. I mean, you're constantly on, and now people are recognizing you, and you have to constantly be that person.
The character.
So, you know, that's something to think about, too, if you want to be on camera. You know, it's like, you're going to be interrupted in your family life. You're going to be, hey, could you, oh my gosh, talk to me. All people coming up to you constantly, you know what I mean? So it's like, you might be open and eligible for that, and you might love live television, or you might be working behind the scenes of it and just love that, you know, there's nothing like it, but, you know, that's a decision that you're going to have to make.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having that question. So we are at our end meet. I know, sad, because all of you
We
guys
could talk
are
forever,
awesome. I know. They're telling us no, so I guess we can't.
We're not supposed to take no for an answer, though.
I know. That's true. That's true.
Unless you're on camera, then you listen to the people.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you
have
guys.
to answer to a higher authority.
Literally higher, elevated. So again, thank you guys for coming out, and thank you guys for attending. And I hope you guys got the knowledge of what these people can offer you, and hopefully if you do go into entertainment, you can possibly connect with them and stuff. So
I guess they're really
that was
telling
just
us
weird.
it's time to
I know, they're like
well, and I want to
angry.
thank Sade again also for arranging all
Thank
this.
you.
She did a phenomenal job. This is a great panel. Thank you all for coming.
Yes.
Give yourselves a round of
Thanks for having
applause.
us.
All right.
And in the show.
And that's it.
I'm like, and we are done.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, party.
Won't you help me roll back home? The feet are stumbling, walk me down the street in the